Hey everyone, my name is Tammy Davis. Thank you very much for joining me today on this video. I'm an internationally certified master clinical phytotherapist and aromacologist, which is something I haven't mentioned in prior videos. And the reason I'm including that now is because my background includes pharmacology, aromatherapy, as well as the ongoing study of plant constituents and their mechanism of action on the human genome as it relates to drug development. And to me, that's a really important piece because it takes the use of essential oils outside of a book or a website and begins to piece them together in a way that creates a synergy within the human body. This isn't to say it's in lieu of medication. It can be used in lieu of medication. I'm not saying everybody needs to be on medication, but I'm also saying if you are on medication, it does work, but you have to understand how to incorporate the constituents because the reality is that the study of plant constituents involves the influence of plant constituents on the cell receptors as well as liver enzymes. And that's essential to understand because this is actually, again, how they're designing medications. And to duplicate the mechanism of action is pointless and potentially harmful. So realizing how to incorporate all of these is necessary. The phytotherapy aspect is because I also have a background in the science of food, the science of nutrition, or the chemistry of food is a better way to say it. And I pair food or dietary suggestions with the oils. And the combination thereof actually works rather well, quite well as a matter of fact. Anyway, for the point of this video, I've had a couple of cases recently of individuals who've approached me regarding edema primarily in the lower extremities. And I mean, I realize that we can get it in other reasons, but in other places in the body, and obviously it all boils down to inflammation. And but one of the things that I find very fascinating is that fluid regulation is a part of the autonomic nervous system. And dopamine is known to activate the release of acetylcholine, which is one of the primary neurotransmitters involved in the autonomic nervous system. It has both an excitatory and an inhibitory effect on the ANS. Same thing can be said for norepinephrine, is the other primary neurotransmitter with the autonomic nervous system. And it can also be excitatory as well as inhibitory. And the other neurotransmitter that is somewhat involved is epinephrine. But the point that I'm getting at here is dopamine has been known to, as like I said, dopamine is actually necessary for fluid regulation because it does influence the activity of the autonomic nervous system. But what I find interesting is that when we have issues with fluid, it's a sign that the autonomic nervous system is taxed. Technically, lower extremity edema is related to a weakened sympathetic nervous system. Anhidrosis, which is the inability to sweat normally. You know, you might get sporadic areas, but just have a difficult time sweating, is also indicative of a weakened sympathetic nervous system. And when I say weakened, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not working. It just means it's been taxed to the nth degree, which really speaks volumes about the level of stress that you've been under. As a result, I mean, and so I guess the purpose for this video is to highlight these various chemicals and then say it's, you know, and again, this can also translate into more serious health conditions, and there would be a point in time where medications would be warranted to actually help to regulate these neurotransmitters. Acetylcholine is indicated in Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and we often speak of being low in a particular neurotransmitter or hormone, or you'll hear about it being high. What I've come to understand through studying the neurochemistry of all health conditions, or many health conditions, I won't say all because they continue to evolve, but at least a lot of health conditions. When I studied the neurochemistry of these, and I've talked about this in my recent podcast, is if you look at it, if we were to be realistic, my body contains the same type of chemicals as your body. I mean, for as different as we all are, as for as different as our health conditions are, then, and I'm got to be careful because I'm not saying a one size fits all. So so allow me the opportunity to finish a thought here. But we all share the same type of chemistry is what I'm trying to get at. Our chemicals are all the same. So again, in spite of our differences, we all have the same type of chemistry. How our chemistry is adjusted accordingly to whether it's where our body is thriving or in survival mode. And my basic statement is that all of our bodies are in survival mode given the environmental factors that we're facing. At the same time, so we're all being influenced, and depending on our individual genome, that will affect the various levels of chemicals. Now, again, this is not to say that we're high in one and low in another. We're actually producing these. They're just being used for different reasons, and they're being altered as a result of this stress response or this survival mode that we're in. And again, if it's extreme, if you're already dealing with a diagnosed health condition, then of course, there may be it would warrant medications if we need to at least try to level things out. But the point I'm trying to emphasize here is you're not lacking in chemicals. You don't have too much of one and not enough of another. What you have is a variation in levels because the body is attempting to keep you alive in response to your external world. So your internal environment is communicating with the external environment, or I should say the external environment rather is communicating with your internal environment, because nature communicates via chemicals. And so now you have an alteration within the system that will justify, by all rights with throughout nature, justify an inflammatory response. Again, how this translates in your body depends on your individual genome. So this is one of the reasons why it's absolutely impossible to say that we can come up with, or any remedy is the best thing for everyone. This is part of the reason, this is actually the primary reason why everything I do is custom. This is a really good emphasis for personalized wellness. There's no such thing as one size fits all. And so again, our chemicals are altered as a result of our internal environment is responding to the messages coming in from the external world, and nature is designed to preserve itself. Life will continue to move forward. Yes, I realize that sometimes this does result in disease and death, but that doesn't make disease bad. That just makes disease an indicator that your body has been working extraordinarily hard for you. And we just missed the opportunity to kind of align with our body's needs and actually help bring stability to the system. I'm hoping this is making sense. So when we get to the point of severe health conditions, and we still have an opportunity to align again with what our body needs are. It may have to be a little bit more intense than it would be if we started out at an earlier point in our life. And this is a really big reason why I advocate for kids to be kind of stepping in and working with their systems at this level, because they can really make a difference for their future health. So what does all of this mean? Well, what happens when the body is under attack? And whether we want to believe it or not, it's consistently under attack. I mean, there's so many bacteria and viruses alone that we're having to be protected against, because nature has an ability to protect itself, and we'll get to how that happens. And of course, there's also the environmental things that we're exposed to as well. But in response to any form of external threat, the body, like I said, produces an inflammatory response. This is a stress response. This is and eventually long term. So this isn't just like you walked through swarm of bacteria and your body just went on high alert and started, protecting you. This is ongoing every single day of exposures to heavy metals, to additives in our food, to emissions in the air. It doesn't make any difference. We're exposed to so much. In addition to the bacteria and the viruses that are out there, which there are a lot. And so the body's consistently responding to all of that information. As a result, the chemistry is altered in order to be able to produce the chemicals that will protect us. This is the idea of stress. This is exactly what stress is doing. It's protecting us. This is the reason why there's such a major emphasis on reducing mental and emotional stress, because we're just compounding the issues that are coming in from the environment. But nonetheless, the body has to make a change in its chemistry based on your genome, and it's going to produce the chemicals that will keep you protected. A lot of these changes are reversible. Some of them are not. A lot of the ones that are not reversible happen to be ones that are produced by medications. But ultimately, our adaptations to the environment are reversible, and this is the beauty of the oils, because the oils are signaling molecules because they are lipophilic, just like our hormones, just like many chemicals in the environment. So, and nature has an innate ability to recognize something natural. And this is another reason why it's absolutely necessary to be careful about how you mix natural supplements, oils, and medications, because the natural will override and will alter the way the medications are being used. So a mindfulness in that regard is important. I realize this video is about edema. I'll get there. So anyway, and actually I'm there. So the inflammatory response, again, is a change in the chemistry, and that chemistry is oxidative stress. We produce reactive oxygen species, such as hydrogen peroxide, which is used to keep us protected from lead. It is also indicated in, it also keeps us protected, obviously, from, a major, an acute attack of bacteria and viruses. That's the reason why when we get cuts and stuff. So another aspect to it, but it's also that hydrogen peroxide is produced along the nitric oxide synthase. There's a cycle there. And that cycle happens to be also heavily involved with activating the immune system. So this hydrogen peroxide is also, believe it or not, indicated in, again, this is the reason why when you're cut, it produces hydrogen peroxide so that you can get this, or if we're exposed to lead, the hydrogen peroxide is used in order to move the lead into the bone marrow, which is the primary place we store lead. And and what I find fascinating is that we're also seeing a lot of gray hair a lot earlier in life, which is indicative of reactive oxygen species being produced in the body. I find it very interesting because, we've all, those of us who are here now relate to gray hair as an aging process. And of course, I can see that under, stressful times. But I honestly have to say, there was a point in our history that there are no photographs of people. We may have cave drawings and things like that, but when did the gray hair actually come in? Is that really part of the aging process, or is that an indicator of, because the immune system was altered as a result of the Black Plague. And so since then, the advancement of technology, which includes medications and so forth, could also be a lot of why we're seeing gray hair, because it's just a lot of peroxide in the system and it's graying us out. But again, if we're exposed to a lot of these heavy metals, like I was saying, in this case lead, this is also doing it. So it's a very fascinating thing. But technically, once the thread is over, the body has the ability to deactivate that hydrogen peroxide. That's just one example. The point to this video is ammonia. Because ammonia is indicated in edema. It's the body's inability to, I shouldn't say the inability, it's not converting, there's more ammonia than is being converted into urea, because ammonia gets converted into urea in the liver. And ammonia is part of an oxidative process. And come to find out, ammonia actually has, so, one of the things that, I've talked about this, and that's the reason why it's Q&A with Mother Nature, is it's time we ask why. And this is how I kind of run everything when I work with somebody, is why is this happening? Why are we producing too much ammonia? Well, ammonia actually has a reason in the body. We're not producing anything that that cannot be used for something and then eventually eliminated. Like I said earlier, the liver will take in many chemicals. The liver will convert it to a usable chemical, and then eventually waste it. Get rid of it. A good example is caffeine. Caffeine is converted into a number of things, from theobromine, xanthine, and theophylline. Theophylline and xanthine are actually turned into respiratory inhalers and so forth. So there is good reason for these chemicals. And then eventually, so in our case, we're actually producing our own bronchodilators. So in the case of ammonia is actually used to produce proteins that are used in many enzymatic processes. And if the excess ammonia is supposed to be at that point turned into urea, which then we excrete. But if we're not, and the funny thing about it is I think about this, and I can tell you the number of methylation tests that I have sat down and looked at the reports, and the number of natural clinicians who sat there and told people that on this particular case, CBS genetic complex is defective and they're producing too much, there's a lot of them, and they're calling it defective. That already sets somebody off to think that there's something wrong with their body. And nobody's explaining that we actually have a reason for producing ammonia. And it's because these genes have been adjusted. There's been an adaptation that has occurred in response to and it's not just that gene complex. Keep in mind, this is like a domino effect. When one thing changes, another thing changes, and another thing changes. So the body has a really brilliant way of being able to regulate its own chemistry and then undo it and do something else. Again, when the immune system changed back in the 1300s, we didn't do anything as a species to make that happen. We didn't preserve the life that was still on the planet. Over 70 million people died from the plague. And somehow or another, nature was able to make the adaptations necessary to preserve the species. Yes, we lost a lot of lives in the process. And at the same time, we are here because somebody in our family line survived the Black Plague. So hello, brother and sister. Anyway, that's just me. So my point is that ammonia is absolutely necessary. However, too much is not good, and it can lead to such things as edema. And like I said, the edema is also part of the autonomic nervous system, but we don't necessarily want to concern ourselves with which chemicals are too high or which chemicals are too low. We want to come in to stabilize. And this is why it's very, very important that we understand what oils do what, because oils have the ability to influence various chemicals in the body as well. So you have to understand what you're using, number one. And number two, in this case, it's not so much, yes, we want to do the symptom relief. We want to help relieve the fluid, but we also have to take into consideration, number one, any medications. And number two, not to try to over control the situation. We want to help the body be able to regulate and relieve the stress at the cell level. So symptom relief is important, but cellular stress relief is absolutely necessary in order to slow down the production of ammonia, because if it's being used to produce proteins for enzymatic processes, this says the body is highly active. At the same time, if it's not being converted fast enough, by the liver enzymes into urea, that tells me that the liver is potentially congested or is, struggling somehow. I mean, that's how I would say that. And so there's a number of ways that you can, actually deal with the liver. And through Ayurvedic practitioners are very good with that. Chinese medicine practitioners are really good with that. I mean, you can even try some things at home. And nourishing the liver is number one. I have a link in the description box below for that, the way to nourish the liver. Because if the more we care for our liver, the easier it'll be for it to convert the ammonia. Again, if it's really, and keep in mind, when I say it's congested, I don't mean it's like not functioning. I mean it's overworked. Just like the autonomic nervous system is overworked, and more specifically the sympathetic nervous system, we have to help stabilize the liver. And so nourishing it with such things as beets and walnuts and avocados is a really good idea. So like I said, there's a document in the description box below that you can click on and download. I'm going to show you something here. I forgot to grab it with me. Hang on. Oh, I don't think you can see it. The light's not shining on there right. I can get it. There you go. Mangista. Okay. That's actually an Ayurvedic herb. I was going to try it. Oh. I was going to try to read you the botanical name, but it's Mangista. And I'll have a link here in the box as well for, you can take a look at that. And you can even look it up online to kind of get a better idea. But it's really good for helping to clear out the blood and move the lymph. So I highly recommend that. I don't necessarily recommend taking it. I don't necessarily recommend taking it for very long. I generally ask, I myself use it from time to time. When I say time to time, maybe at the changes of season, like spring and fall. It's pretty much, I do it twice a year. But I only do it for a week at a time, no more than 7 days. If you work with a practitioner and they tell you to use it longer, then by all means follow your practitioner's recommendations. But for myself, I only do it for 7 days when I am going to do it. So that's another one that you can do that's really good for the liver. And again, the document is in the description box, making sure that your digestive system is up to speed with enzymes and using oils is how I really want to say it. Using the oils, because truthfully, I mean, there's some dietary suggestions that I could make that are very helpful and helpful in the sense that they actually help the body better use the ammonia and help the body actually convert the ammonia into urea when it's not needed for protein synthesis. Those would be foods that are high in ornithine, lysine, and arginine, if I said that correctly. Walnuts are an exceptional source of arginine. I highly recommend those for many, many reasons. Again, because of their omegas, good source of that. Lysine, believe it or not, is spirulina. I mean, you can actually get it in cheese and poultry, but if you're not into meat and dairy, and spirulina has a really good source of lysine in it. The ornithine is your beans, like your adzuki, your kidney, your navy beans. Again, cheese. Oh, also eggs. Cheese and eggs are good for both of these. What else I was going to say? Oh, almonds and chia seeds and pumpkin seeds, good sources of ornithine. So including those in your diet are good reason, because they're good sources. And if you're actually taking things like digestive enzymes in your diet, then you will benefit. You'll be able to better break down the macronutrients, and it'll keep things, more usable. but again, I also have people tell me that, they've tried some of the dietary suggestions, or I have people that just want to do the dietary suggestions, and then they kind of get a little disturbed because, well, it didn't necessarily, work to their advantage. And this is where I say the oils have to be used because, as I mentioned earlier, the oils are signaling molecules. And what that means is that they, number one, they help relieve the cellular stress, and in turn help to, and as I mentioned also earlier, nature has a really unique way of recognizing nature. And so if we are exposed to a lot, and let's just say it's not even medications, let's just say that we're exposed to just the environment. Okay, you're not taking medications and you're just looking at the environment. These chemicals, these lipophilic chemicals, such as these xenoestrogens, which are everywhere, the body will actually pick up and respond to the oil before it would respond to the xeno. So it's actually a protection mechanism. And again, when you are relieving the stress and it is using these molecules in a positive, in a good way, positive way, you're actually picking up the nutrients that you need and offsetting any potential side effects and relieving symptoms at the same time. So it's an interesting way to do it. But that's the reason why I really, really advocate for the oils. But again, you got to understand how they affect the neurochemistry. And I've actually had several people this week who wanted to do things. I was really delighted that they called me or emailed me rather, but they wanted to do things that would be considered a natural, remedy. And I had to take them off the oils and told them to stop using the oils for a while until they completed that, because it just didn't work to combine the two. And I realized that I really advocate for oils, and I do, but there's a time and a place for everything. And too much is always too much. And if you're trying to detox your body, you need to choose your method of doing it. But just keep in mind, every time I had somebody ask me this once, once I go detox my body, they had gone to some place to go detox it, and somebody, whatever this clinic was, told them once they detox, they wouldn't have to ever detox again. They would be clean. And I'm like, we're producing oxidative stress all the time. We are producing a lot of these toxins. We might try to go, we're producing the toxins to protect us from the toxins out here. If we're storing toxins in our body, it's because they are lipophilic, also known as fat soluble, and they are being stored in tissues. If you want to truly detox your body, a healthier way to go about doing it, honestly, is to stimulate the production of antioxidants. And in this case, when we're dealing with edema, if I were to give you a formula right here, it would be a start. And I can't guarantee it's going to work for you because I don't know you. I haven't heard your story. I don't know what's going on with you. But that's why I get kind of funny about making suggestions here. Yeah, I think I'm not going to. I don't want to take the chance. I just can't. I don't want to take the chance of making a suggestion and then it blowing up, somebody taking me for my word and then I ended up with adverse reactions. So if you would like to know something about essential oils with regards to edema, then please join me in my closed Facebook group and we can talk more personally there, and you can give me more specific information and we can share it within the group, and then people can begin to learn. Because what I really ultimately want to do is help people understand how to use the oils, but I don't want to be careless about it and just start randomly talking about how and what oils I would suggest for a certain situation, in this case edema. It is fairly easy to reduce the edema, but again, we can reduce the inflammation, but at the same time, we have to help regulate the system and stabilize the system so that the ammonia levels are more of a balanced, at a balanced level, a more usable, user-friendly level. Okay, so wow, I'm just really kind of surprised at how this rolled out. I wasn't expecting this. I'm hoping this makes sense. But again, if you are dealing with edema, yes, I know there's a lot of herbs out there that actually help reduce inflammation. Please use the herbs if that's what you feel like you'd like to do. You know, I'm not saying that you have to do it this way, but if you find, I mean, it's not going to stop it from happening, because edema, and it does increase when it gets hot. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this video right now, because as it's getting hotter, there's more and more people experiencing edema. And again, it's about fluid regulation. Heat, in extreme heat, is stressful to the system. So it's going to trigger the autonomic nervous system. But yet, if the sympathetic nervous system is weakened as a result of constantly being on, it's the fluids are there's going to be a dysregulation in the fluid. So go ahead and do your symptom relief, but if what you're actually looking for, if you really want to help reset the system and stabilize the autonomic nervous system and reduce the oxidation process that is producing so much ammonia, then we need to go about it a different way. And like I said, the liver is number one. You really want to help the liver, because the liver is responsible for converting ammonia into urea. And again, depending on the medications you take, that is going to determine what kind of oils you can actually use. Secondly, including such foods, and I'll list them again: the adzuki beans, kidney beans, navy beans, cheese, eggs, pumpkin seeds, almonds, chia seeds. Excellent source of ornithine, which is necessary for the conversion of and the process of ammonia. Lysine is found in cheese, eggs, spirulina, and other meats. Okay, again, if you're not a meat eater or you're not into dairy or eggs, then just do the spirulina. Increase the amount of spirulina that you're taking. And the other thing is, let me show you the spirulina. Almost forgot that. See, that's Theo back there. I call it, we're T squared. We're a team, but I do all the talking. I guess he's my teller. I have pen and teller. I'm pen and he's teller. So anyway, but this is the spirulina. There we go. It's and I actually really, really like this. It's a really good brand. But I generally just take 2 myself a day. But if you're, in a situation where, it's warranted, then feel free to take more. I mean, I've told people to take up, you can take up to 6 of these a day. It's food. It's not a pill. I mean, it's not a medication. It's food. But if you start to find that you don't feel as well, or something funky starts to happen, just go back down to the 2. It's your body. It's you'll know what you can get away with and what you need. So, and then of course the Mangista. I really don't. There we go. There we go. And so those 2 are really what I recommend. And then as far as the arginine, walnuts. Okay, so that would be the dietary suggestions in addition to what you find in the Nourishing the Liver document. As far as oils are concerned, I don't want to go into that just for the sake of safety. So let me know if you have any questions. Tammy at synergessence.com. Join me, like I said, on my Facebook group. That link is in the description box below. Follow me on my podcast, or check in on my podcast, because I do talk about different things over there. The most recent one was, can we prevent addiction? There's a lot of interesting things that going on over there. And on my website, synergessence.com, where I'm starting a password protected blog where I individually answer your questions regarding your health concerns. And the Facebook group is your health concerns with regards to oils. So I'm trying to keep everything, if you're interested in oils, then just go to the Facebook group. If you want to go do both, go for both. But I do want to say that the reason for the Mangista, I could do that. There we go. The reason for that one is, like I said, it helps to, it is an Ayurvedic herb, and it does help to clear the blood, clean the blood basically. It's a blood purifier, and it also helps to move the lymph system. So, but no more than 7 days is my recommendation. Again, your body will let you know, and if you are working with a practitioner, check in with them. All right. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to connecting with you and hope you're having a brilliant day wherever you are. Bye.